Well, hello and welcome again to the Strategy Room interview series. And today I'm joined by David Parks. Now, David Parks is the founder of Circle Up Coaching. It's a recent pivot that he's had. David is a sales expert, been in the sales game, and now has decided to pivot into coaching and utilize all the skills that he's taken from sales. Hey, David, thanks so much for coming on board today. I'd love to hear a bit more about that journey. So if you could give us a brief description of your journey, where it's come from this sales thing into the seat where you sit now with coaching. Fire away.
I'll try and keep it short. So I got into leadership development 26 years ago. And interesting to me, it involved moving from London to Silicon Valley. And I actually joined the Tom Peters company, as in Tom Peters, the business author, and joined them in a marketing role. And we were doing leadership development. I was doing marketing and handing off wonderful sales leads to the sales team. 3 months later, I'd be asking, how's it going with that prospect? And a lot of the time, the salespeople would say to me, oh, nothing happened. They're not interested in leadership development. And I said to my boss, the CEO at the time, I think I can do better than our sales team. I'd like to get into sales. So for the last 24, 25 years, I've been in the business of selling leadership development and coaching. So I've been the front person evangelizing the need for leadership development.
Okay. So there is a little bit of skepticism in the coaching industry. You mentioned before when we were having a bit of a chat that it's a bit of a saturated market. So how do you handle skepticism or resistance from clients? And what strategies do you use to break through those barriers?
Overcoming client skepticism. Is that what I'm hearing, Peter?
Yeah.
I think, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. And it's very easy these days to put up a good front through good marketing, through imagery, through words. Everybody looks very good and sounds very good. And then you have the experience, whether it's a workshop experience or a coaching experience. And that's sometimes where it can fall flat. So the ability to actually deliver on the promise is key.
Yeah.
And the marketing secret sauce is, how do you codify that and transmit that experience so people have confidence to actually buy from you and be coached by you or use your workshops?
Actually, that's a great term you mentioned there, to buy from you instead of you selling to them.
Yeah, exactly. If you think about it, to use a classical marketing example, the more pull that you can create in the marketplace versus push, because push is very hard. And sometimes it's self-selection. If you look on my website, I say I only want to work with people who are serious about leadership development.
Yes.
So if you're in the business of having to convince somebody that they need to do this stuff, then you're pushing a big boulder up a hill. You want to find people who are motivated to do better.
Oh, yeah. Look, yeah, completely committed is what you need. It's the perfect client. I understand. So you've just recently pivoted. So what was the biggest challenge that you faced when starting your coaching business, this pivot? And how did you overcome that?
So, the biggest challenge for me is technology. And, part of why I got into leadership development and coaching years ago was I just love the human interaction, and I love to see people do well. I love putting energy into a situation versus sucking energy out. So the biggest challenge for me, and here we are on a Zoom call, I'd much rather be sitting across the table from you having a cup of coffee. The biggest challenge for me is organizing the technology to be effective these days. when everybody is so busy and so distracted. And there are so many mediums that we can communicate with people. We've kind of forgotten how to use the old-fashioned medium of actually speaking and listening, speaking and listening.
Yeah. So true. So you've had a short span as a business coach, but what's been your most rewarding moment to date as a business coach?
You know, I can think there's a handful of conversations where I've been working with leaders in organizations, and I use a 360 at the outset. So sometimes, you know, it's not always good news. People aren't as good as they thought they might have been. And it's that cold light of day reality. But the ability to work with them and look at what the feedback is telling them and not let it devastate them.
Yeah.
And actually, one of the ways that I do that, Peter, it's not measuring how good or bad a leader you are.
Yeah.
It's more measuring the frequency that you're seen to engage in leader-like practices. So if you're getting a low score on coaching or communications or self-awareness, it just means that you need to really think and increase your consciousness. Okay, how do I have better coaching conversations? How do I show up as that more authentic leader? And just start to be intentional about it. So working with individuals to help them really see where they're leaving their potential at the door, and they can really lift their game. That's very enriching for me.
Okay, so we've had we had a few comments on the coaching industry. So how do you believe the coaching industry is evolving, and what can upcoming coaches do to stay ahead?
Well, I think as a coach, you always have to be learning and sharpening your own soul, practicing what you're preaching. So just being very self-aware. And a large part of coaching is creating that safe space for people to open up and say what's really on their mind.
Sure.
And that goes back to, you know, human connection. It goes back to trust. It goes back to empathy. So as I hear about the industry talking more and more about artificial and virtual, I do get concerned, because I don't want artificial. I want authentic.
Yep.
I don't want a pretend or a role play conversation. I want a real conversation on real issues that are going to make a difference.
Yeah.
So I get a little concerned that sometimes we're going through the motions of this stuff.
Yep.
And it becomes the cool thing to do.
Yeah, it ain't that cool. I'm with you on all that. There's a lot of automation, but it doesn't get checked often, Dave. That's the thing I see. Yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Sorry, say that again.
What are your thoughts on that? There's a lot of automation, but they don't seem to check it much. Check the pipeline, make sure.
Yeah. Automation, efficiency. I'm an efficiency freak. I want to get things done well.
Yep.
But when you treat people like widgets, or somebody has to fit into a software program that's constructed by a technical engineer, and there's not a good human, it's not a human-centric design, that actually just causes frustration.
Yeah.
And for somebody like me, it means I revert back to old-fashioned, and I will get in my car and drive an hour and a half down to San Jose to have a meeting, because there's value in that, in being in the same room and the same place as a person. I think sometimes technology and artificial intelligence, it gets too clever for its own good.
Yeah, I love it. Yep.
I mean, how often, just in a simplistic way, do you punch into Google or ChatGPT and get exactly what you want?
You never will. If you think that's an exact, yeah, I agree entirely. David, I'm respectful of your time, and you were giving me 30 minutes today, and I really appreciate it. Just thanks so much for being here today. It was great meeting you and learning. There's two sides of the tracks you've been on. Been in the sales side, and you've been entrepreneurial side, and now really fitting into coaching. And I really enjoyed talking to you. And thank you again, David. It's been great. Been a great experience.
Well, thank you, Peter. Appreciate the opportunity. Take care.
Thank you. Okay, so to everyone watching, I look forward to seeing you in the next episode of The Strategy Room. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the other side.